Well, hello, Hunter Smith here with Revolutionizing Your Ride, the Battle Motors BEV video series where we talk all things electric vehicles. It's hard to talk about electric vehicles without talking about some of the driving forces behind what's causing this adoption in electric vehicles. And one of those big drivers is known as CARB, the California Air Resources Board. Not to be confused with the EPA, two different things. But the California Air Resources Board is a government agency that was started back in 1967 by a governor named Ronald Reagan. He started it to combat the pollution that people were seeing in California, primarily smog. And so CARB has, through the years, given mandates and enforced manufacturers to build cleaner engines. In order to sell cars in California. Since then, CARB has, other states have adopted the more aggressive mandates that CARB has put forward, and those other states that are CARB states, if you will, are California, obviously, Colorado, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Washington, Vermont, and Rhode Island. So there are 14 states there that are CARB states. Now, you'll know that you have a CARB vehicle if you've got a sticker on the side, a holographic oval that has a picture of California and says CARB. That means that it's compliant in that state to be able to run, and you should be fine. But you don't have to have that sticker if you're not in one of those states. Now, if you do business in California, you'll have to check with your regulatory agencies and see if you need to be CARB compliant or not. But CARB has been a driver and has partnered with the EPA a lot. And in 2002, we had EGR, exhaust gas recirculation, and that was kind of driven through by that realm to get soot out of engines. 2007 emissions was the DPF filter that we're all familiar with. 2010 emissions added the SCR system, the DEF system, selective catalytic reduction, and that system was put in place to combat NOx emissions. So basically you got two emissions coming out of it. So you got smog, which is smog. You got soot, which is particulate matter. Soot is made up of unburnt diesel fuel, and it's the black smoke that you see coming out of a truck. NOx emissions, the nitrous oxide emissions that come out, those emissions are what contribute to smog and air pollution. So there's really no way to make those trucks run perfect, but CARB is doing their best to try to combat those. But every time they combat those, they put a system on the truck that makes the truck run worse. There's more sensors and less clean air. You want a truck to run good, you put clean cold air and the compressed air in the intake, and you let it get out of there as fast as possible through exhaust. But if we're doing exhaust gas recirculation, which EGR valves, we're putting dirty air into the intake. That's driving performance down. When we're putting a DPF filter on the exhaust system, we're slowing the exhaust getting out of the vehicle. And then you put another exhaust system on top of that with SCR, and the more and more stuff that you put, the harder and harder this gets. So I do know there's a lot of unknowns about, right, at least right now from my perspective, on 2024 emissions. There is another CARB class coming. Now, previously, we did not really separate CARB from EPA very often. Most of the time, we just put CARB on everything because that's the way it was. This year, CARB engine coming out in 2024. Any engine that's manufactured after December 31st and put into service after March 31st, I believe it is. So is going to be a CARB engine in those CARB states. If you want a CARB engine in those CARB states, it's going to cost you an estimated $10,000 to $30,000. We don't exactly know what that upcharge is going to be. We do know that it's going to force the warranties to be substantially longer. The standard warranties in those states on those engines and those exhaust systems is going to go up to 5 years. One of the reasons they're doing that is they're trying to de-incentivize people from taking exhaust systems off of trucks and altering them in any way. There is probably going to be some hardware changes, and I don't know 100% what those hardware changes are, but they're there, and they can't help your performance any. So if you had some frustration in the last few years with def quality sensors, with dosers, with DPF filters and regen issues and EGR valves and just stopping up and all that kind of stuff, I can tell you this: the situation is not going to get any better. with diesel trucks. And then we have more regulations coming in 2027. We have more regulations coming in 2031. And basically by 2040, they want 100% zero emission vehicles on the road in CARB states, or at least sold in CARB states. So, that may sound like it's pretty far out in the future, but 17 years can go by like that. So, I'm just letting you know where it's going to, and that's really why the push from the industry to do this. Because if we want to sell trucks into California, New York, Colorado, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, which there's a lot of people there, from a manufacturing standpoint, we have certain metrics that we need to meet, and engine manufacturers have certain metrics that they need to be able to sell a certain amount of engines in order to do that. So while right now, if you live in, Oklahoma, nobody's forcing you to buy a CARB truck. Next year, you can just buy EPA class engine truck. You will buy a cheaper truck than they would buy in California. But at some point, Oklahoma may decide to adopt those CARB standards, or the EPA may just decide to match CARB standards. We're not really sure. But at some point, the engine manufacturers are going to be incentivized to build to those standards as well. So, it doesn't bother me. I sell EPA trucks. You won't want to give me a call. You want a CARB truck, give me a call. But I'm here to educate about electric vehicles, and it's hard to talk about electric without talking CARB. So I just want to make sure we set the table and let everybody know where it is. CARB is not everybody. It's not every state. In the past, we put those stickers on just about every truck. You're not going to see that coming this next year. So make sure that you're getting the right thing. Make sure that somebody's not trying to save you some money and in turn keep you from operating your truck in California or being able to keep you from registering it at all. But there's a lot of things happening around the country, and it's not just California. It's not like this evil California, but CARB is a lot of states, and it's on both coasts and all over the place. So and it's going to grow. So that's what it is. So that's just another incentive to all these systems. Yes, the cost is going to go up in 2024. It's going to go up in 2027. It's going to go up in 2031. And it's just going to keep costs on these diesel trucks are just going to keep going up. But diesel trucks, the technology is getting better. Electric trucks, the technology is getting better every day. The performance is really good on those trucks. And we don't have to worry about def quality sensors, EGR valves, dosers or injectors or belts or any of that kind of stuff. So that's definitely something to look into. Now, as I said before, you definitely need to make power in order to power these vehicles. And right now, that's not as big a concern as a lot of people have been led to believe, but it will be. And so we need to make sure that we find good ways to make clean power so we're not just pulling the wool over anybody's eyes. But hey, that's CARB, and I wanted to talk to you about that. You want to buy a truck, give Hunter a call. I sell internal combustion trucks, diesel, and natural gas, but I'm really excited about this electric technology. You have more detailed questions, send them to me in this email right there. If I can't answer them, I'll get somebody who can, or at least give you the best estimates that we have. So don't be scared about it. And I think we're going to talk about grants coming up real soon. So thanks a bunch.